There are moments in life when certainty feels comfortable. A steady job, a dependable partner, a future arranged in polite, predictable lines. And then, in a single instant, something interrupts that calm. A glance across a crowded street, a stranger standing too still in the rain, a feeling that arrives without permission. In Killing Me Softly, we step into the life of a woman whose world appears orderly, almost carefully constructed. She has routine, she has trust, she has the kind of stability many would call success. But stability can sometimes conceal a quiet hunger. And hunger does not always ask politely. The man she notices is not loud, not flamboyant. He carries himself with a contained intensity. There is mystery in him, not the playful kind, but the kind that feels guarded, almost dangerous. His past does not present itself openly. It lingers in silence. Attraction here is not gentle, it is immediate. It disrupts reason. It asks the question we rarely voice. What if the life you built is not the life you truly want? The film moves into intimacy quickly, but not carelessly. It observes how passion can blur judgment, how desire can feel like destiny, and how the unknown can appear more honest than the familiar. Yet beneath the romance lies unease, small details, a hesitation in tone, a piece of information that does not quite settle. Trust becomes fragile, curiosity becomes suspicion, and the more she reaches toward him, the less solid the ground beneath her feels. Directed by Chen Kaige, the film wraps its story in polished surfaces. Modern apartments, mountain landscapes, carefully framed intimacy. But behind that polish lies a question about obsession, secrecy, and the cost of surrendering too completely to passion. What do we truly know about the person we love? What do we choose not to see? And when desire speaks louder than caution, who pays the price? This is not simply a romance. It is a descent into intimacy where certainty dissolves. And as we begin, we sense it clearly. Something beautiful is unfolding, but something hidden is waiting. In Killing Me Softly, the characters move within a world of modern comfort and hidden fracture. Each one appears grounded at first, professional, composed, self-aware. Yet beneath that surface lies uncertainty. The story depends not on grand spectacle, but on the tension between what is shown and what is concealed. At the center stands Alice Loudon, portrayed by Heather Graham. Alice is intelligent, independent, and settled into a stable life in London. She works in a respectable profession and lives with a partner who offers predictability. Graham plays her with softness rather than recklessness. Alice is not naive. She is restless. Her journey is driven by desire, not simply physical desire, but the longing to feel something immediate and undeniable. As the story unfolds, her confidence shifts into doubt, and her curiosity into suspicion. The film rests heavily on her perspective. We see events largely through her awakening awareness. Opposite her is Adam Tallis, played by Joseph Fiennes. Adam is a mountaineer, a man associated with danger and isolation. Fiennes gives him a contained intensity. He speaks little about himself, yet his presence feels deliberate. Adam functions as both romantic ideal and unsettling mystery. He embodies risk. His profession, scaling mountains, mirrors his personality, solitary, disciplined, and accustomed to navigating perilous heights. The less he explains, the more he occupies the imagination. His silence becomes part of his character. Jake, Alice's former partner, is portrayed by Ulrich Thomsen. Jake represents stability and reason. He is steady, rational, and visibly perplexed by Alice's sudden transformation. Though his role is smaller in emotional intensity, he serves an important function. He is the life Alice leaves behind. Through him, the film contrasts safety with uncertainty. Deborah, Adam's sister, is played by Natasha McElhone. She carries an air of quiet warning. Her presence introduces unease without overt accusation. Deborah's role deepens the mystery surrounding Adam's past. She stands as a reminder that families carry histories, some shared openly, others guarded. Supporting characters appear briefly but add texture. Colleagues, acquaintances, figures from Adam's mountaineering world. They contribute fragments of information, pieces that never quite assemble into full clarity. Each interaction shifts the tone slightly, reinforcing that perception is rarely complete. Directed by Chen Kaige, the film depends on the chemistry between its leads. The performances are restrained rather than theatrical. Much is communicated through glances, pauses, and physical closeness. Passion and uncertainty are intertwined. In this story, characters are not exaggerated archetypes. They are modern individuals navigating intimacy in a world where information can be hidden behind charm. Their presence feels real, which makes their unraveling feel personal. And at the center remains a simple, unsettling truth. The closer we draw to someone, the more we risk discovering what we were not prepared to know. Alice Loudon is living a comfortable, predictable life in London. She shares a steady relationship with her boyfriend Jake, and her days move with quiet routine. Nothing is broken, nothing is urgent. Then one afternoon in the middle of the city, she sees a stranger. The encounter is brief, a glance in passing, but it unsettles her completely. The man is Adam Tallis, a mountaineer known for surviving dangerous climbs. There is something intense and reserved about him. He does not pursue her aggressively. He does not charm her with easy talk. Yet the attraction is immediate, almost overwhelming. Alice makes a choice. She leaves Jake. She seeks Adam out. Their connection ignites quickly and with force. Passion replaces caution. Within a short time, she abandons her former life and marries him, drawn by the certainty of her desire. At first, the marriage feels intoxicating. Adam is attentive, protective, and deeply physical in his affection. They move into a beautiful home. The relationship is intense, almost consuming. But beneath that intensity, small details begin to disturb Alice. Adam is secretive about his past. Newspaper clippings appear in drawers. Stories of women who died in climbing accidents while involved with him. When she asks questions, he grows distant or defensive. His silences are heavier now. His protectiveness feels closer to control. Alice learns that several women connected to Adam have died under suspicious circumstances during mountaineering expeditions. The pattern unsettles her. Were they tragic accidents or something darker? Deborah, Adam's sister, offers little comfort. Her behavior is strained, ambiguous. She warns Alice indirectly, suggesting that Adam carries burdens from his past, but the warnings lack clarity. Doubt grows. Alice begins investigating quietly. She contacts individuals connected to Adam's previous relationships. One former lover suggests that Adam can be obsessive, intensely possessive. Another implies that danger seems to follow him. The more Alice searches, the more fragmented the truth appears. Tension inside the marriage rises. Adam senses her distrust. Arguments replace intimacy. His temper surfaces in flashes. Not constant, but enough to unsettle. At times, he appears deeply wounded by her suspicion. At other times, frighteningly controlled. Then events escalate. A woman connected to Adam's past is found dead under violent circumstances. Evidence begins pointing toward Adam. Alice fears that the man she married may indeed be responsible for multiple deaths. The sense of danger becomes immediate. Yet as the investigation unfolds, another possibility emerges. It is revealed that Deborah, Adam's sister, harbored a deeply disturbed attachment to her brother. Jealousy and obsession shaped her actions. The deaths that had been attributed to Adam were, in fact, the result of Deborah's manipulation and violence. She had eliminated women who grew close to him, unable to tolerate sharing his affection. In the final confrontation, Deborah attempts to kill Alice, confirming her guilt. Adam intervenes. The truth is exposed. Adam is not the murderer. He has been a tragic figure shaped by secrecy and trauma, but not the monster suspicion painted him to be. The film closes with Alice and Adam surviving the ordeal, their relationship scarred but intact. Trust must be rebuilt, not assumed. Passion alone is no longer enough. What began as reckless desire becomes a lesson in perception, in how easily fear can grow in the absence of clarity, and how love can blur judgment when certainty is replaced by doubt. The stranger who once seemed dangerous was not what he appeared, and the danger that felt distant was closer than anyone imagined. When Killing Me Softly was released in 2002, the controversy that followed did not center on politics or religion, but on intimacy, on how explicitly desire was placed at the forefront of a mainstream thriller. Directed by Chen Kaige, a filmmaker internationally respected for epic historical dramas, the film surprised many critics and audiences. Known for works of cultural depth and historical scale, Chen's move into an English-language erotic psychological thriller drew immediate scrutiny. Some questioned whether the material aligned with his artistic reputation. The shift itself became part of the discussion. The primary controversy, however, concerned the film's sexual content. Several scenes between Heather Graham and Joseph Fiennes were unusually explicit for a wide theatrical release at the time.
The intimacy was not merely implied, it was visually direct and prolonged. In certain markets, this led to stricter age classifications and edited versions for broadcast or home release. In the United States, the film received an R rating due to strong sexual content and nudity. While not banned, the rating limited its accessibility to younger audiences and influenced its commercial reach. In more conservative regions, television broadcasts were heavily edited, and some distributors hesitated to promote it widely. Critical reception also intensified the controversy. Many reviewers argued that the explicit intimacy overshadowed the psychological tension. Some described the film as stylistically polished, but narratively uneven. Others felt that the erotic focus blurred the thriller elements, leaving audiences uncertain whether the film aimed to provoke suspense or sensuality. These criticisms did not result in official bans, but they shaped public perception. For Heather Graham, the film extended discussions that had followed her earlier roles involving sexuality. Media attention focused less on performance and more on physical exposure, a pattern common in early 2000 coverage of actresses in erotic roles. The conversation revealed broader cultural attitudes toward female sexuality on screen, often judged more harshly than male counterparts. In parts of Asia, the film's reception was more muted but still cautious, especially given Chen Kaige's prominence. Some commentators viewed the film as a departure from the socially conscious cinema he was known for. It sparked debate about artistic direction rather than morality alone. Ultimately, Killing Me Softly was not widely banned across major territories. Instead, it occupied a space of discomfort. Too explicit for some mainstream audiences, too restrained for others seeking a darker psychological edge. Its controversy lived more in critical dialogue and media framing than in formal censorship. Over time, the discussion surrounding the film has softened. It is now often viewed as a product of its early 2000 moment, a period when erotic thrillers were attempting a brief resurgence after their prominence in the 1990s. The controversy did not silence the film, but it did shape how it was remembered. Less as a pure thriller, and more as a work that tested how far mainstream cinema could go in blending passion with suspicion. When Killing Me Softly arrived in 2002, it entered a cinematic landscape that was already changing. The erotic thriller, once dominant in the late 1980s and 1990s, was beginning to lose its place in mainstream theaters. Audiences had grown cautious. Studios had grown careful. And the appetite for adult psychological suspense was shifting toward darker crime dramas and high-concept mysteries. In that sense, the film stands as one of the later entries in a fading cycle. For Heather Graham, the role reinforced a screen image that had followed her since earlier performances, one associated with openness, vulnerability, and sensuality. While some critics reduced the film to its explicit moments, others recognized that her performance carried the emotional weight of the story. Alice is not written as reckless for spectacle. She is portrayed as a woman driven by longing and then trapped by uncertainty. The film did not dramatically elevate or damage Graham's career, but it did solidify her association with roles that explore intimacy without hesitation. For Joseph Fiennes, the film offered a departure from his more restrained, dramatic roles. His portrayal of Adam balanced charm and menace, forcing audiences to question him repeatedly. Though the film did not become a commercial success, it contributed to his range, showing that he could inhabit ambiguity rather than straightforward heroism. Perhaps the most discussed impact concerned director Chen Kaige. Known internationally for sweeping historical works such as epic dramas rooted in Chinese culture, this English-language erotic thriller puzzled many observers. Some viewed it as an experimental step into Western commercial cinema. Others considered it a misalignment between filmmaker and material. While it did not redefine his legacy, it remains a curious chapter within his body of work. A reminder that established directors sometimes explore unfamiliar terrain. Culturally, Killing Me Softly reflects the early 2000s, moment when erotic thrillers attempted revival, but struggled to regain mainstream authority. The genre had once thrived on tension between desire and danger. By 2002, audience expectations had shifted toward faster pacing and more explicit psychological complexity. The film's polished style and romantic framing felt slightly out of step with the emerging cinematic tone of the decade. Over time, the film has gained a quieter afterlife through home viewing and streaming. It is often revisited as a period piece, not of fashion or design, but of genre transition. It captures a moment when cinema still allowed adult passion to drive suspense without irony. Its legacy is modest but clear. It marks the closing stretch of a genre era. It highlights how desire can shape narrative tension, and it reminds us that films sometimes become more interesting in hindsight, not because they transformed the industry, but because they reveal where the industry was headed. In that way, Killing Me softly endures, not loudly, but steadily, as a reflection of a time when romance and suspicion still shared the same frame. In the end, the city is still standing. The streets are the same, the buildings unchanged. Life moves forward, as it always does, yet something within has shifted. Killing Me Softly is not only a story about danger hidden behind charm, it is about choice, about the quiet moment when we turn away from certainty and step toward something unknown, not because it is safe, but because it feels alive. Alice believed she was choosing passion over routine. She believed intensity was proof of truth, and perhaps, in some ways, it was. But the film reminds us that desire does not erase consequence. It does not protect us from fear. It does not guarantee understanding. Love, when rushed, can blur the edges of reason. Suspicion, when unchecked, can blur the edges of trust. The stranger who once seemed irresistible becomes a mirror, not of who he is alone, but of who she becomes in his presence. Directed by Chen Kaige, the film leaves us with no grand declaration. There is no triumphant lesson spoken aloud, only a quiet awareness that intimacy is powerful precisely because it requires surrender, and surrender always carries risk. We are left to consider our own impulses. How well do we know the people we invite into our lives? How well do we know ourselves when desire begins to speak louder than caution? The title lingers like a whisper, not a scream, not a warning shouted across a room, but something softer, something closer. And as the screen fades, the question remains, was it love that changed everything? Or the need to feel something stronger than comfort? The answer is not given. It rests with you